beautiful, beautiful Tuesday morning. It's a bright day down here in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, where we are live, where we come live from the CBD of eThekwini. We are on number 417 Smith Street, known as Smith Street now. Anton Lembede or Anthony. No, not Anthony, it's Anton.
Yeah.
It's Anton Lembede, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm tempted to say Anthony, but it's not Anthony. It was
Anton
Lembede. Yeah. 10:30 on the dot. Time is just gone. Now, as usual, joined this morning by Layla Paruk, Dorasani, and we are talking marketplace chat. Good morning.
Hi Malungi. It's so good to be here with you again. Time's just flown. I just feel like I was here yesterday and it's already been a week.
I know.
Thank you for having me.
Thank God for this brand new week.
Yes, absolutely.
We are refreshed again and ready to go.
New week, new possibilities.
Amen. I like that. And new day, new possibilities.
Oh, yeah, every moment. We were actually just chatting. Somebody was saying, oh, we're entering into the second half of the year and people are counting down to the end of the year and all of that. And my husband said to me, he said something to me and I said, I don't get that anymore because we live in a time where every day should just be important and special and we should just, we waited. We thought in a year's time COVID would be gone and our lives would be back to normal. So, we keep waiting for next year or next month or next week. But I think it's all about embracing every day and really just making the most out of it.
That is so true. And doing what the Lord has given us to do, has entrusted unto us daily, speaking of a year ago, we would have thought, who would have thought that we would be here today? A year ago, we thought it was just for 21 days.
Oh, I know. How wrong we were.
Here we are again. And sometimes I think this kind of lifestyle or this kind of thing that is happening right now can neutralize what one has been given by the Father to accomplish, even in such a time, because it's easy to just take your eyes off and focus on what is happening around and then think, okay, anyway, there's no church, there's no gathering, so I can just be, you understand, whereby the Father has entrusted so much, even in this time.
Especially in this time. Malungi, I'm really hearing you when you say that. I think I've seen so many people who've literally put their lives on pause because of COVID, and they keep waiting until when COVID is over, not realizing that they're wasting precious days that they've been given. And there are some people sadly who didn't make it through COVID. So I've really learned how to embrace every day.
Right.
And especially as believers, and especially now while the church, we're not allowed to gather and those type of things, we need to be keeping that fire burning, and
that
we
is
need
so true.
to embrace every moment that we have and live for today. I know we were all saying last year at our birthdays, especially for those who had lockdown birthdays, they said, I'm not counting this year doesn't count. But every day counts, and we need to wake up every single day and decide that we're going to give God our best, because we have the privilege to wake up and be alive.
And we have the privilege to be alive even in this season.
Absolutely.
You could have been alive, Layla, in 300 years ago, or 400 years ago even. But here you are in this generation, in this season, in this hour, and with the DNA of God in you. And one may say, why? And you heard how they say, the specialists, how they say that the DNA, our DNA, it's like no one is like you. You are special, you are precious. Well, you are so unique, which means there's no other like Layla, there's no other like Malungi. Then it makes one to focus more, to say, hey, then why am I? It makes me wonder, why am I alive in this season? Why am I being placed on planet Earth in such a time as this?
I hear you. Jeremiah 29:11 talks about the plans that God has for our lives. And you're speaking about how unique we are. And I'm just thinking to myself, if God created us so unique, He's created a unique blueprint for our lives as
That
well.
is so true.
And are we, I had a really amazing boss at my previous job, and it was a very high pressure environment. And I remember saying to her after a couple of weeks, I was like, "So Simpume, how do you do this?
Right.
I just want to crawl under the desk. It's scary here." And she said to me, Layla, I wake up every morning and I say to God, "You've given me this business and you've planned every single day of my life, so you take control of this day,
Sure,
Lord."
sure.
And I think that was one of the most profound things I'd ever learned. When we wake up in the morning and we feel out of control or stressed or under pressure, we need to remind ourselves that the author of our lives, God, is in control. And if we go back to Him and if we ask Him, He's going to guide us and He's going to show us. In fact, I was just chatting to my husband on the way here, and we were talking, and he said to me, we don't struggle because we don't pull out God like He's a spare wheel when we have a problem. It's that ongoing relationship with
That is
Him, and
so
it's
true.
praying every day, and it's calling on Him every day. We were reading something yesterday, and the lady said her daughter got extremely sick and she had to rush her daughter to the hospital, and as her husband and her were driving, there wasn't a conversation, there wasn't a
Right.
sense of phone somebody to pray or do this. They just both started praying in tongues fervently. And
Right.
that's how we need to actually now progress as believers. We need to have God very evident in every single aspect of our life. Last week we spoke about combining our secular and sacred lives.
Right.
And that for me has just really become something that I stop and speak to myself about all the time. I say, is this what God would have wanted? Those back in the day there were those WWJD bracelets, the "What Would
Right,
Jesus
yes.
Do?" And it was worn as a bracelet. And I think they had the right idea there, because you wore those bracelets every day and you were constantly reminded of acting as Jesus would act.
Right.
And even
Right.
in the marketplace,
Right.
that's what we ought to be doing. We need to be asking ourselves, what would Jesus do? How would Jesus respond to the situation?
Right.
And really start walking that talk and being the light. You spoke about us being the light of the world. That's exactly what God has called us to do.
Speaking about that, isn't it amazing how our Lord Jesus Christ says, "Those who follow me can never walk in darkness,"
Yes.
which means then we become the light. We
reflect His light.
We reflect His light.
I think for me, one of the most beautiful teachings I caught it was years ago, and it really struck with me. I was listening to Genesis, and it spoke about there was light, and then later on sun and moon were created.
Right.
So God was the light. God
Yes.
is the one who provides the light.
Right.
And then it spoke about glory and about how we take glory, and glory is a heavy thing to carry, and it's not meant for us. We are not even meant to be the light as much as reflect God's light. So we need to allow God to be the light in our lives, so that His light would reflect off us into the world.
Right.
And the only way we can do that is to walk with Him. So if we've got the light with us and in us, then it's His light that we're letting out into the world. We're not trying to create a light.
Right.
And
we're not trying.
We're not trying.
All right.
We're not trying.
Right.
We're reflecting. We're emitting.
Right.
So it's by behaving in His way, doing things as He would have done, that we let that light into this world.
But it starts from that place of fellowship.
Absolutely.
Right. Daily fellowship.
It's a relationship. It's not just that prayer in the morning or that prayer before you go to bed, but it's driving and talking to God. It's worshiping.
So
it's when we have a situation, we get down on our knees, whether it's at our desks at work, that we bow and pray, or even in ministering to people. I say ministering to people, but it's in our meetings when we go out. The way we conduct ourselves, everything we do ought to reflect God and ought to be worship unto God. We think of worship as raising our hands and bowing our knees and singing a song, But if we live in such a way that everything we do glorifies God, then
Right.
that is worship unto God.
That is so powerful, Layla, because question may be, and by the way, for someone that just tuned in, we are talking about, we are talking marketplace conversations with Layla, Dora, Semi Paruk, and today we're looking at the blame game in the workspaces, or should I put it this way, the importance of being accountable as a believer
Yeah.
in the workplace or in the marketplace. The question would be, am I supposed to be known as a believer only when I'm in church
Hmm.
and around other believers? Or this light that our Lord Jesus Christ is talking about should be able to shine in every sphere of influence?
Absolutely. You know, you've spoken about the topic for today, blame game and accountability, and it's not just believers that ought to behave in that way. In fact, the law of the country requires that we are truthful and we are honest, and the law protects people against dishonesty.
Right.
And when I'm talking accountability, I'm talking about honesty.
Right.
Firstly,
Right.
and interestingly enough, if you look at the armor of God, the first piece of armor that we are meant to put on is the belt of truth.
That is true.
And Jesus says He is so the truth will set you free, and He is the way, the truth, and the life. So, speaking the truth and going into an environment, in the marketplace environment, it sounds obvious that we ought to be truthful and have integrity.
Right.
But I find more and more that I deal with people that are dishonest, or that don't have accountability. And the reason I say the blame game is we sometimes pass responsibility onto somebody else, and we're not accountable. We don't become accountable or own things. And it really affects, I think, our mindsets as well.
Right.
So we develop this victim mentality, this victim mindset, that it's somebody else's responsibility, it's somebody else's fault, and oh, poor me, I'm just caught in the middle of it. And when you look at, for example, I had two managers early on in my career.
Right.
And the first one, we would go for meetings, and the client would say, we used to do in-store activations, where we were really heavily reliant on promoters who would go into store and do the work. And younger people, being not very responsible, quite a lot of them, would sometimes just not pitch up at the store, and then we'd have an absent, and so the client would always ask, what happens when your promoter doesn't pitch up?
All right.
And this manager would say, oh, no, they always pitch up. They always pitch up. We put the fear of God into them. There's no way that they're not going to be absent. And I'd sit there and I'd be like, ooh, okay. Like, what do we, I mean, the truth is they would be absent sometimes.
Yeah.
And what she would do, and I've actually seen this done in the industry over the years, was they'd, fake timesheets, or they'd, phone the store and say, oh, don't say my promoter didn't come, or, those type of things, and try and cover it up. And, this was now my manager, and this was what I was being taught. So, and it filters down, because like I said, over the years, I've interviewed many people where I asked them, what do you do if your promoter doesn't pitch up in store? And she says, oh, no, we just use an old timesheet and we just change the date. And I'm like, oh, okay. And many years later, I went to a meeting with a new manager at a different company that I had joined, and she was asked the same question: what happens if your promoter doesn't pitch up?
Right.
And she was just so calm, and she was such a good role model for me.
Right.
She smiled and she said to the client, we deal with human beings, and sometimes they let us down.
That was such an honest answer.
And I actually, what was even more amazing was when she said that, I felt like a weight lift off my shoulder, and I started learning to do my job differently, and I was much less stressed because I was no longer needing to lie to my client.
Right.
So she said, what we do is we provide a traffic light report to you when the promotion starts, and we'll say to you, we had 50 stores, 43 promoters were in store, 3 promoters were sick, and the other 4, and we will give you honest feedback. And then what we do from there is we'll replace the days that they missed, or we won't charge you for them.
Right.
And I was like, wow,
Interesting.
that is such a different perspective.
Right.
It's taking accountability for something that you don't have control of, but this is how I'm going to deal with it. And I think what happens quite often is, I mean, I often have suppliers, and I choose my suppliers so carefully now, and I immediately get a sense from them in terms of how they respond when something goes wrong.
Right.
If something goes wrong, say, I'm sorry, this has happened, and my biggest thing is not about whose fault it was.
All right.
But how are we going to fix it? What are we going to do about it? You know, I really value honesty with anybody, particularly in the marketplace, in dealing with suppliers. If I have a supplier that will pick up the phone and say to me, Leila, I know we told you we were going to deliver at 10 o'clock today, but my machine broke down. I've got somebody coming through to repair it. Realistically, I don't think we're going to make it for today.
Right.
Then I have facts in front of me which I can then communicate to my client, and we can find a way to resolve the situation. But if I'm trying to call that person to ask them where's my delivery, and they're avoiding my calls because they're not taking accountability for the fact that they have failed to deliver, I'm not going to be happy, and I'm not going to want to use them again.
Right.
But I think what happens is that people are so fearful, and that's what the enemy does. They plant these fears into our heart that if I tell the truth, I'm going to get into trouble.
Or I'm going to lose the job.
Right. Whereas it's actually the other way around. And we actually create stress in our lives, and we create a stressful environment for ourselves where we're now covering up lie upon lie upon lie, or we blame someone.
Right.
So I've often had the situation where something goes wrong, and then they're like, oh no, but this person was supposed to do this. But I said, like, who's in charge? Who's the manager?
Right.
Who's accountable? I just need someone to take responsibility and be accountable. And if I know you've done your best, and you know, that's what I hold myself to now. It's like sometimes things don't go according to plan, and sometimes I will fail to deliver on time. But if I can confidently say to my client, I've done everything that I needed to do, I've gone as far as I can possibly go in order to get this done the way you wanted it to, and it didn't unfortunately work out. The van broke down, or the machine broke down, or something happened. But I'm not going to say to you, oh, my supplier let me down, or blame someone. I'm gonna be honest, and I'm gonna say, listen, how can we fix it?
All right.
What can I do to fix it?
Right.
As opposed to blaming someone.
That is so true, Leila. I mean, I think you once mentioned this as well, about how some of our Christian businesses, when it comes to such areas, people will say, oh, is it a Christian business? Okay, pass it. I'll pass it. Simply because some of us, I think, we are not truthful enough when it comes to accountability. We are not able to be straightforward and say, no, sometimes we start things and it's not fully formed to actually be of supply or of service to someone. And then in the middle, we are stuck, and people, they look at it as, oh, it's a Christian thing, whereby it is not. It is not. We are people of excellence. We are people of integrity. We are people of, as believers, as Christians, or yes, we are people of integrity, of
I shouldn't have to tell someone that I'm Christian.
Right.
They should meet me and know that there's something different about me by my behavior.
Yes.
And by the way I conduct business, and my integrity and the accountability. And we should be examples out there in the marketplace. We should be that standard of excellence that people aspire to.
Right.
You know, long term in terms of business, you can try and be the cheapest. You can try and do all sorts of things, but for me, I've found that it's the integrity, it's the reliability.
Right.
It's my client knowing that they say to me, I need this by this date. They tick it off their list and they get on with their work, knowing that they are going to get exactly what they asked for on time, in excellence, and that's what we stand by. People
mm.
will be cheaper, people will promise the world, people will do all sorts of other things to get the client, but I know that the clients that I have come back because I keep my promises and I keep them informed. I'm honest with them. I'll say to them, listen, this might make me more money, but I recommend this because this is a better way to go. I would say to them, look, I don't really do this, but here's somebody you can deal with. And they look at me and they go, but why are you passing me on to someone else that, you could make money off it? And I'd be, well, actually, you know what, they're a local supplier, deal with them. It's because it's not just about the money. And I think the minute we in the marketplace are focusing, and it's business after all, yes, we all need to earn some money and make a living. At the same time, we need to ask ourselves, is this the ethical way of doing it? Is this the Christian way of doing it? I think it started very early on in the Bible. If you look at Adam and Eve, that they started what we call the blame game. When Eve ate that fruit and she passed it on to Adam and he ate it, when God said to them, firstly, what happened? They hid because they knew they did something wrong. And what's so profound about that is that's exactly what we do. When we're not willing to be honest, and when we're not willing to take responsibility, how then the person's not answering their phone, and you're phoning them, and you can see they're online, but they're not answering their phone because they're hiding. Instead of being honest. And when God asked Adam, what have you done? Have you eaten from the tree? And he says, no, it was Eve. It was this woman that you gave me that did it. And is that not what we do? No. My staff, I don't know. We're blaming someone else.
I can hear the men who are listening right now saying, yes, it was Eve.
It was, but you know what? Adam was responsible for his own actions in taking that fruit from her. And I think this is a very important thing that we need to look at. Yes, something might not be according to how one. I really cringe when people blame the government for everything. I do agree that there's been a lot of questionable behavior and a lot of things that, but then I look at organizations. I look at people. I love. I get involved with various charities, and I was given a little postcard, and it had such a profound saying on it from the Robin Hood Foundation. It said, I always wondered why nobody did something about it. And then I realized that I am somebody. And there again, it's taking ownership, it's taking responsibility. Yes, the government might not be doing X, Y, or Z, but we as people on the ground have the power to make a difference, have the power to take ownership of something and say, and more I'm seeing businesses rise up and take responsibility, start mentoring kids, putting together food parcels and going out and feeding people, going to schools and speaking to learners and motivating them. Yes, the government might not be doing it, but instead of us sitting around and pointing fingers, what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? Let's start taking accountability instead of complaining.
Sure. You've been with many of people, or let me put it this way, you've been in the marketplace for a while and you've dealt with many suppliers. When it comes to kingdom ethics, or when it comes to people that are supposed to come in the marketplace with kingdom ethics, what can you say, or where can you say we've lost it in terms of what are some of the things that we can bring to sometimes you find that you've got the basket, but they are missing eggs there, and so your basket is not is missing some. Where can you say we've lost it somehow, and how can we fix that? As people of integrity, as people of excellence, in the market, in every sphere, because it's supposed to be in every sphere where we are placed. We're supposed to influence with righteousness, with justice, with integrity and all of the above, So how can we better, how can we better ourselves in terms of
I think what tends to happen is especially younger people tend to enter an environment, and there's already a culture that's been set. So, sadly, like I was, I mean, my earlier boss, that was the culture of the company, that's the way she ran that office.
All right.
And that was the response she'd give to clients. So me being more junior than her couldn't say no, but that's not true.
All right.
Or I wouldn't say, because now obviously we're sitting with the client. But I had never felt bold or empowered enough to question
Right.
the way she did things, or the fact that we were blatantly lying or doing something that was
Right.
incorrect.
Plus, you were needing the job.
Absolutely.
I would think, because, as
Yeah,
you enter the
You know,
market.
interestingly, you say that, and you've just reminded me, it was in that same workplace environment that I actually discovered that another manager that was senior to her was actually doing something illegal. She was paying somebody who wasn't working, so she was like paying herself through this person and just putting them onto the books. And I remember I picked it up eventually and spoke to this manager of mine, and I said to her, this is what's going on, and she was too scared to say something because this was her boss. And I was just fuming. I was just really fed up by then. And I was actually on maternity leave at the time. And I phoned one of the senior managers in Joburg. And I said, listen, I can't work under a manager who does things like this.
Right.
And this is what's going on. And I was actually criticized for doing it. And I was like they didn't like me very much afterwards. She got fired. I got her fired. Well, I didn't get her fired. She got herself fired by her actions. But, I think a lot of the time we're too scared.
Right.
We're too scared to speak up. We're too scared to actually say something, but we'll watch things happen that shouldn't be happening. And I think it's not, I really believe this is true. It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
All right.
It's how you approach the situation. But we need to be bold enough to speak up. I think quite often, and what's happened in this world is, as Christians, we have silenced ourselves. We are allowing ourselves to be silenced. I mean, it's ironic that I put on TV the other day and there was a 5-hour online gay pride festival happening.
Right.
And our churches are silent. Our churches are being silenced.
Right.
We need to be louder. We need to be bolder.
Right.
Not in a way that's gonna upset and irritate people, but we need to just go out and spread that light and spread that love and become bolder and more prominent. I remember reading something and it spoke about how you look at Earth from another, or from outside, of the atmosphere, and you look at Earth and how you can see certain lights. And this person said, imagine if, as Christians, we had a light that was visible, how we would light up the earth if we are being active.
Right.
So if we're walking around and actually shining those lights in a dark world, all of us who call ourselves Christian should be making a difference. So if we have to look at the number of people who say they are Christian, and you ask, what type of light are you bringing into your environment? Are you active?
Right.
And if we're not making a difference, and if we're not seeing a change around us, then we need to start asking ourselves difficult questions.
Right.
Am I being the light?
In the marketplace.
Absolutely.
In every place where God has placed me.
Yeah.
This is powerful. Which means this life is not only for church. It's not only for going to church, and then we light ourselves up in that kind of environment, and then Monday to Friday it's just back to the systems of, they say, Babylon system.
Yes,
we're back to the Babylon system. We're back to the systems of this world. Which means we take that system of the Christ into the world, into the marketplace.
That's so powerful. You said the Babylon system, and I immediately think of Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and how they were placed in an environment in Babylon, in that system, and they chose to be the light. They chose to say, no, actually, I am not going to partake. I am not going to behave in this manner. Even when the boys were thrown into the fire for not wanting to bow down, they said, even if God doesn't save us, we will, this is not something that we are willing to do, because we know who we are and we know our God.
Right.
And we need to have that type of ability to stand knowing the God that we serve.
Knowing who we are and who He is in us.
And speaking His truth.
Right.
And speaking His truth.
Time just flies.
It does.
It is 59 minutes after 10. We're about to go to the news. Thank you so much, Leila, for the market chats this morning, and looking forward to next week. Again, taking responsibility in the marketplace, taking this responsibility and not passing the baton, not the baton, Malungi, and not playing the blame game.
Yeah. Seeing where we can make a difference and just really standing up and doing something.
Amen. Let's go straight to the news. Thank you so much once again. Until next week. And on Facebook, you are?
Leila Parak Dorasami.
Leila Parak Dorasami. And on Instagram as well?
Yes.
Awesome.